The family dinner was an orchestra of laughter and clinking glasses, but beneath the surface, a tension crackled like static in the air. As I sat at the long oak table, the familiar weight of unease settled in my stomach. Francesca, my sister-in-law, had a way of turning every family gathering into a stage for her performances, and tonight was no different. I felt my heart race as I absently twirled my spaghetti, glancing up to find her smirking, eyes glinting with malicious delight. It started innocently enough, with the usual banter about the kids and last weekend's soccer game. Yet as soon as Paolo excused himself to refill his glass, Francesca leaned in closer, her voice dropping into that dreaded conspiratorial whisper. You know, I was just telling the others about Giulia's wild high school days. Remember when she dated 3 guys at once? What a player. She laughed, but the laughter didn't reach her eyes. It was laced with venom. The table fell quiet for a moment, and my blood ran cold. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, the kind of vulnerability that felt like standing naked before a crowd. My past was a patchwork of mistakes, but they were mine to own, not hers to mock. I glanced at Paolo, who was busy chatting with my brother on the other end of the table, blissfully unaware of the betrayal that hung in the air. My heart sank deeper. How could he not see what she was doing? Francesca pressed on, clearly relishing my discomfort. I just worry for your husband, Giulia. Living with such a colorful past must be hard on him. She turned her gaze to Paolo, her expression a blend of concern and feigned sweetness. My breath caught in my throat as she manipulated the narrative, painting me as an untrustworthy partner, pulling my husband into her web of lies without a second thought. The laughter from my family felt like daggers, each chuckle cutting deeper. I fought to maintain my composure, to keep my dignity intact in front of everyone. As I forced a smile, my mind raced to recall the moments when Francesca had subtly knocked me down before. Her comments wrapped in a thin foil of humor, but sharp enough to leave scars. The memories flooded my mind, her snide remarks at our wedding, the way she always managed to find a flaw in whatever I achieved, like a cloud darkening my sunshine. In that moment, surrounded by what I thought were loving faces, I realized this was more than just family banter. Francesca's facade masked something darker. She was out to ruin me, piece by piece, chip away at my identity while propping herself up as the golden girl. The laughter continued, but I felt increasingly isolated, a prisoner among my kin. Oh, Giulia doesn't mind, Francesca declared, her tone dripping with false sincerity. After all, she's just lucky to have Paolo at her side. I clenched my fists under the table, my knuckles white. Francesca's words seethed through me like acid. A part of me wanted to scream, to confront her lies, but I was trapped in a cycle of fear and confusion. I couldn't help but think about what an outburst might do. Would it push Paolo further into his sister's arms? Would he believe me, or would he side with her, as he had often done? As she continued her tirade, the realization struck me with a sudden clarity. I had to put an end to this. I would not allow her systematic attacks on my character to persist. It was time to stand up, to reveal the truth and not let my name be tarnished by a jealous schemer. I would gather my strength, collect evidence of her deceit, and show the family the true Francesca. The woman masking her insecurities behind a facade of concern. Deep breath in, heart racing. I promised myself that this would not be the end of my story but merely a painful chapter. I was determined that, in time, they would all see the truth, and that I would no longer be the victim of Francesca's twisted games. As I sat in the comfortable embrace of our living room couch, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, I was transported back in time, sifting through memories like pages in an old photo album. The warmth of the past had a way of masking the chill that lingered, an ever-present shadow in the form of Francesca. It struck me how moments that were once comforting now felt tainted by her jealousy and bitterness. I thought back to my wedding day, my heart swelling with love and hope as I walked down the aisle to meet Paolo. Everyone had gushed with compliments, telling me how radiant I appeared. Even Francesca, adorned in her matching dress, had put on a show of support that day, her smile wide, but I'd glimpsed the flicker of envy in her eyes when she caught sight of the attention directed at me. In those early days, I had naively believed Francesca's facade of camaraderie. We shared laughs over wedding planning, indulging in cake tastings and planning bridal showers. Yet, lurking beneath her seemingly supportive demeanor, was a constant undercurrent of sardonic remarks and subtle name-calling. "Oh Julia, you're really going to wear that," she once quipped, raising an eyebrow at my dress choice. I brushed it off at the time, chalking it up to her quirky humor, all the while ignoring the way each comment chipped away at my self-esteem. Flash forward to family gatherings where her comments felt almost rehearsed, like pieces of a script designed to keep me on my toes. "Well, you know Julia always aims for perfection," she'd tease half-heartedly, yet behind her words lay a clear intent to diminish my accomplishments. I initially tried to joke along, thinking she wanted to bond over a laugh, but every chuckle felt like a reminder that I was forever being scrutinized and judged through her lens. My thoughts wandered farther back to those earlier years, the moments when Francesca's jealousy began to surface. I remembered the holidays. She was always the one to diminish my achievements, only to turn around and flaunt her own in the same breath. "Julia might have the perfect job, but remember last year when my cake won that contest? Everyone loved it, especially Aunt Rosa," she'd exclaim passionately, her eyes sparkling in delight as she basked in our family's applause. Each time she framed my successes alongside her trivial victories, it felt like another layer of my worth was being stripped away. Even the photographs told a story of their own, unearthing painful reflections of a rivalry I didn't know I was engaged in. I stumbled upon old family albums filled with snapshots of Francesca's fleeting glories. Photos of her standing next to me, radiating undeserved pride against my more substantial achievements. While I was being promoted at work or celebrating personal milestones, Francesca's existence felt like a shadow constantly seeking to eclipse my light. My recollection deepened, and one particular incident crystallized in my mind: Francesca's birthday party 3 years ago. It had been meant to be a day of celebration. Yet as I prepared to give a sweet, heartfelt toast, Francesca interjected, making a joke about my cooking skills. The laughter that ensued was infectious, and I tried to laugh along, but the sting of her words lingered. As the crowd cheered for her next cake, I felt the hollowness of being a silent participant in my own narrative. I had wished for a moment of joy, a chance to connect, but she built walls instead, reinforcing her role as the favorite, the beloved. From that day, I felt different, as if Francesca had unraveled a part of me I didn't know existed. The part that desperately craved validation in familial circles. With every snarky comment she made disguised as humor, I slowly began to realize her tactics were not merely sibling rivalry, but rather the manifestations of her deep-seated insecurities. It became clear that Francesca was driven by fear and inadequacy, fueled by her own dismissed dreams and failed relationships. As time moved on, I began to bury my frustrations, using them as fuel to push harder in my own life. I wanted to be the best version of myself, and maybe, just maybe, Francesca would see that and stop the attacks. I put on a brave face. I smiled through the strain, convincing myself that one day, she would grow up and accept me as family, that she would drop her facade and let go of the hate she clutched close like a safety blanket. But with each passing year, I felt the weight of her resentment grow, overshadowing every effort I made to reach out. That's when the realization hit me hard. I had been hoping for acceptance that would never come. Francesca's jealousy wasn't something I could change. Her perception of me was clouded with her own insecurities and her need to feel superior. Instead of wallowing in despair over what wasn't, I vowed to reclaim my narrative. I would no longer remain the unwilling victim of her schemes. It was time to step into the light, to break the chain that tied my dignity to her whims and lies. With a new resolve igniting within me, I began to mentally prepare to confront this rivalry head-on. I would gather my strength and encounter the truth. Her jealousy would not define me any longer. I was determined to rise above the pain, not just for myself but for my marriage, to show Paolo the truth of who Francesca really was. I had grown tired of worrying about gaining anyone's approval, acknowledging that Francesca's perception of me would hold no power over my self-worth ever again. After that humiliating dinner, I lingered in the kitchen, cleaning up remnants of what had once been a festive family gathering that had soured so suddenly. The sound of clattering pots and rattling silverware filled the silence, each clink matching the chaos of my thoughts. Francesca's taunts echoed in my mind, sharp and bitter, stabbing at the heart of my dignity. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. It was as if she had ripped off a band-aid, exposing old wounds I thought had healed. As I scrubbed a particularly stubborn pot, frustration boiled over inside me. I found my thoughts shifting from hurt to an ember of determination. No longer would I allow Francesca to undermine my character without consequence. I needed proof of her manipulations. The idea settled in my mind. Despite everything, I would not let her continue this torment in silence. I began formulating a discreet plan to gather evidence. The following morning, while chatting with friends over coffee, I casually steered the conversation toward Francesca. As I reminisced about past family gatherings, I led the discussion toward her snide remarks and backhanded compliments. To my surprise, the responses from my friends were encouraging and affirming. Maria shared an instance where Francesca rolled her eyes at my promotion, cracking a joke about how I must have gotten lucky. Hearing that resonated with my own feelings. It wasn't just me imagining her malice. Francesca was deliberately chipping away at my reputation. But I realized I needed more than shadows of vague accusations. I required solid evidence of her behavior. Thus began my close observation of Francesca, almost as if I were a detective in my own life. During our family gatherings, I took detailed mental notes of her interactions, particularly how she spoke about me with others. At one family barbecue, I overheard her laughing as she recounted a personal failure of mine, dressed up in her usual sarcasm. The laughter that followed felt like poison, seeping into the corners of my heart, intensifying my growing resentment. As I engineered a plan for confrontation, I decided to enlist the help of my brother-in-law. Have you noticed how Francesca has a knack for undermining me? It feels almost orchestrated, I asked, trying to keep a light tone. He stroked his chin in thought, recalling moments where her comments crossed the line from teasing to downright cruel. His acknowledgement ignited a flicker of hope in me. I wasn't alone in this. Emboldened by these insights, I turned to my best friend Sam. We met for coffee at our favorite cafe, and I laid everything on the table. Francesca is spreading rumors about me, and I want to confront her. But this requires proof, I confessed, my urgency spilling into my voice. Sam leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with intrigue. Let's dig into her social media. She tends to overshare her opinions there, she suggested, adding a sense of excitement to our plot. That evening, I dedicated hours to combing through Francesca's online presence. As I scrolled, I uncovered a treasure trove of her veiled insults and backhanded compliments, all carefully wrapped in a guise of concern. One post caught my eye where she questioned my readiness for a promotion, cleverly couched as a worried sister offering advice. I felt a mix of anger and disbelief rise within me as I collected screenshots, each one a piece of the puzzle I needed to build my case against her. The more I dug, the more unnerving it became. I found a private message from a distant cousin who expressed concern over Francesca's tendency to gossip. I saved that too, feeling it validate my worries. With each revelation, my confusion transformed into an unwavering resolve. I was enmeshed not just in a web of deception, but in a struggle to reclaim my truth. Each post painted a clear picture of Francesca's manipulations, illustrating her attacks on my character. With a growing stack of evidence at my disposal, I felt the weight of urgency bear down on me. It was time to confront Francesca, but I realized that how I did it would require careful thought and planning. I had to share this information with my family in a way that painted a clear picture of her deceit, without making me appear overly confrontational. More importantly, I needed to ensure Paolo understood my position, and the stark reality of Francesca's behavior toward me. As I gathered courage, I could feel the climate of tension surrounding my experiences morphing into a resolve for action. I was ready to step out of the shadow that Francesca had cast over my life. I would unveil the truth and reclaim my dignity. My objective was not merely to confront her, but to empower myself by taking control of my narrative. No longer would I remain the unsuspecting victim in her games. I was prepared to face Francesca, and finally let my voice be heard. The days leading up to Sunday's family brunch loomed over me like a thunderstorm threatening to unleash its fury. Each hour dragged, filled with a mix of anxiety and determination as I steeled myself for the impending confrontation with Francesca. When the day finally dawned, sunlight streamed through the windows of my in-laws' dining room, illuminating everything, yet an ominous tension lingered in the air. Francesca arrived, her laughter echoing within the walls, a melody that felt like nails on a chalkboard to my ears. She greeted everyone with a flair that was both theatrical and insincere, her eyes glinting with mischief as she made her way toward me. "Julia, so wonderful to see you. How's the hotshot promotion treating you? Must be a lot of pressure, huh?" Her words dripped with mock concern, and I felt a heat rising in my cheeks as her taunt pierced through my defensive act. "No complaints," I managed to reply through gritted teeth, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. The brunch flowed with typical family chatter, but Francesca's voice was a constant undertow, dragging me into depths of humiliation as she recounted stories from my past, each one more hurtful than the last. "Remember that time you thought you could bake a cake? Let's just say smoke alarms are no match for Julia." Her laughter rang out, a cruel cherry atop a bitter cake of cutting remarks that splintered my composure. Swallowing my anger felt like trying to choke down a mouthful of dry sand. Each snide comment landed heavily, her laughter a constant reminder of the power dynamic she wielded over me. I quickly glanced around the table, catching a few sympathetic eyes, but my family seemed hesitant to intervene, caught in the web of Francesca's charms. Each laugh she elicited made my stomach knot tighter. But deep down, I held on to the fierce determination that had bubbled to the surface after my recent explorations. I wouldn't be a victim anymore. Finally, the moment I had both dreaded and longed for arrived. As guests milled about after brunch, I ambushed Francesca alone in the hallway. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady yet laced with tension. "Oh Julia, you look so serious. What's this about?" she replied, feigning innocence, her smile unsettling. I could see the predatory glint in her gaze, and it stoked the fire of my resolve. "Let's drop the act. I know about the things you've been saying, behind my back," I began, my frustration spilling over the carefully constructed walls I had maintained. She laughed, a sound of genuine delight that throttled my patience. "What do you mean? Everyone loves my humor. It's just a joke. Jokes aren't supposed to ruin people's lives." I shot back, my voice rising. The echo of my words was a challenge, both to her and myself. "I have proof of everything, your social media posts, comments made behind my back. This isn't a joke anymore." Francesca's laughter faltered, her confident mask slipping just enough for me to see the fear flickering behind her eyes. "Proof? Screenshots? You think that's going to matter?" she retorted, but I could see her confidence wavering. "It matters. I'm going to show everyone what you've been doing to me," I declared, feeling the adrenaline course through me. I had gathered enough evidence to dismantle her facade, and I was prepared to use it. "Go ahead, Julia. Make a fool of yourself. Nobody will believe you over me," she sneered, but her bravado didn't sway me. I was done being intimidated. I had witnessed far too many instances of her cruelty disguised as comedy. With my heart hammering in my chest, I walked back into the bustling living room, gathering all the families who had just enjoyed an afternoon of laughter, unaware of the storm I was about to unleash. "Family, can we have a moment?" I called out, my voice reaching over the conversations. As heads turned, curiosity became palpable, and I could feel the tension shift in the air. Francesca's demeanor shifted from playful confidence to palpable anxiety as she realized the gravity of my declaration. I began pulling up screenshots on my phone, revealing posts and comments where she had ripped into my life while draping herself in the guise of sisterly concern. With every swipe, gasps erupted from my family, expressions of shock and disbelief marking their faces as they absorbed the stark reality of Francesca's behavior. "Julia, this is serious. We need to hear both sides," one cousin interjected, trying to maintain balance as disbelief hung in the air. My heart sank at the neutrality and uncertainty flickering through the room. I could sense Francesca seizing the opportunity to twist the narrative, but wouldn't allow her. "Both sides? This isn't about two sides," I urged, trying to keep my voice steady as frustration surged within me. "This is about stopping the toxic behavior that's been overlooked for too long. Francesca's jokes have been tearing me down, and I'm tired of it. This isn't a joke. This is about a sister who relishes public humiliation." Francesca laughed again, attempting to dissolve the rising tension with casual mocking. "Julia can't handle a little humor. Seriously, you all know me. I'm just making family gatherings fun." But her words, which once held power, now faded against the reality I was revealing. As shocked murmurs climbed, I pressed on, my voice rising in defiance. "This is unacceptable. I refuse to be her scapegoat any longer. It's time we address the elephant in the room." Suddenly, the family atmosphere shifted, and I noticed understanding flickering across my siblings' faces. Some looked concerned, while others cringed at what they had brushed aside for too long. They began to realize half-truths were embedded in Francesca's jokes, and I pressed on, feeling empowered. "I've held back long enough. I'm done." Francesca's facade began to crumble, her bravado replaced with an unsettling vulnerability. The support I sought was finally manifesting in the form of my family's collective realization of who had really been casting shadows over us all. It felt exhilarating yet terrifying as my voice echoed in that once friendly space. A call to arms against the undercurrent of manipulation that Francesca had maintained for so long. As the family absorbed my truth, the tides began to turn. I sensed liberation filling the atmosphere. Not just for me, but for everyone who had ever felt stifled under Francesca's overshadowing brand of humor. In that charged moment, I felt not just anger but also the profound relief that comes when you finally confront the darkness standing in your way. As the air settled into a heavy silence following my revelation, I watched as confusion morphed into a dawning realization on my family's faces. The murmur of their conversations faded, replaced by the weight of unspoken truths that lingered in the air like a thick fog. My heart raced with a dizzying mix of fear and anticipation. Had I finally managed to expose the cycle of manipulation that Francesca had orchestrated for so long? Francesca's once confident facade began to crack, exposing a raw vulnerability that took her by surprise. Her eyes flitted around the room as she searched for support, but instead, she found only disbelief and uncertainty. In that moment, I reveled in the fact that she could finally feel the ground shifting beneath her. For years, she had effortlessly woven a narrative that portrayed herself as the charming sister, while I remained a constant target. "Come on, everyone, let's talk this through," Francesca attempted, her voice cracking slightly and her previous bravado fading. "You're all misunderstanding this. I always thought we could joke together." Her desperate attempts to regain control only fueled my determination. "Francesca, it's more than just joking around. You've discredited my accomplishments and belittled me, leaving me to feel insignificant in our family." I called back with fervor, my voice steady yet full of passion. The atmosphere shifted as my relatives began to exchange glances. They were slowly connecting the dots, realizing how her humor often came at my expense. The tension hung in the air, thickening with each moment. I could sense the realization brewing. Francesca's clever masking of cruelty was starting to erode. "Look," I said, leaning forward. "We need to understand that her jokes have created a toxic illusion that has hurt all of us, especially me. Francesca uses humor as a shield, her laughter, a tool for manipulation." A few family members nodded, their expressions shifting from confusion to understanding. I had finally given voice to the feelings we often swept under the rug, sentiments that had lingered too long. I felt a sense of liberation, as if the very air around us was charged with the unspoken truths we had hidden away for too long. "Enough of this nonsense," Francesca shouted, her voice rising and cracking under pressure, revealing just how threatened she felt. "You're trying to ruin family gatherings and make me look bad." Her reaction was frantic but telling. It only solidified the support building around me. "This isn't about ruining anything, Francesca. It's about confronting the toxicity that minimizes our bond," I insisted, sensing the tide turning in our favor. "It's about demanding that we treat one another with love and respect without tearing each other down." The murmurs transformed into a chorus of hesitations. Family members hesitated as they considered their own experiences with Francesca's pointed humor. My cousin chimed in. "You know, I sometimes felt uncomfortable when you laughed at Julia. I didn't realize how it affected her until now." There was a clarity in her voice that pierced through the tension, creating cracks in Francesca's armor. I watched as Francesca's confidence dwindled, her face betraying her as she attempted to regain the amusing persona she had cultivated for years. It was no longer about defending herself. It had transformed into a battle for validation, one she wasn't winning. "Why can't you all see it's just family fun?" Francesca protested weakly, but her words lacked the fiery conviction they once held. The room had shifted. Laughter at my expense was no longer a pleasant memory, but a painful reminder of betrayal. "Francesca, we've had enough. It's time to own up to your actions." I summoned my courage, my heart racing. We all deserve to feel safe and cherished in our family. This is about healing and discovering a healthier dynamic. My sister nodded. Maybe we need to rethink how we support one another. Humor doesn't have to come at the cost of someone else's feelings. Her words rang out, striking a chord with everyone present as the family collectively began to recognize the false harmony in our relationships. One by one, my relatives began to step forward, sharing their own struggles with Francesca's sharp tongue and boundless laughter. "I thought it was all in good fun," another family member admitted. "But seeing it like this, I realize how it's echoed through the years." The admission encouraged more to voice their discomfort, and I could feel the tide turning further in my favor. As I stood in the center of this emotional charge, I could see Francesca's desperation morph into disbelief. She was grasping at her previous confident demeanor, but the cracks were spreading, and I realized she was being revealed to her true self. Her laughter had sheltered her cruel barbs for far too long. I concluded, "Francesca, this isn't meant to belittle our bond. It's about ensuring everyone feels equal. We cannot overlook the scars left by your words." The shift in our family dynamics was tangible, the air electric with an energy that hinted at reconciliation rather than conflict. It was painful yet liberating, this collective shedding of layers we had worn to mask our truth. The realization washed over us. We had spent too long allowing Francesca's charm to dictate our family interactions. We could no longer stay silent about the toxicity disguised as humor, nor allow one person to thrive at the cost of another's dignity. As Francesca's defenses crumbled, I was struck by an overwhelming sense of hope. Together, we had confronted the darkness. Now we could step into the light of mutual respect and acceptance. As the dust settled from the confrontation, the atmosphere in the room was thick with unspoken possibilities. I could feel the relief mingling with tension, creating a charged air that buzzed like electricity coursing through our veins. This was the turning point I had longed for. Each family member was grappling with their own revelations, and it was evident that we were all standing on the precipice of change. Francesca's expression had morphed from one of indignation to bewilderment, as if she were finally facing the consequences of her words. I could see her frantically searching the room for an ally, but it seemed that her support system had crumbled as they witnessed her unraveling facade. The looks my relatives exchanged were filled with empathy for me, but also pity for her, as if they had just witnessed a tragic play unraveling before their eyes. "Why are you all just standing there?" Francesca finally snapped, her voice laced with desperation. "You can't honestly believe Giulia over me. I've always loved this family more than anything." The way she clung to her old narrative was a pitiful reminder of the toxic dynamic we had allowed to fester. "Love shouldn't come with strings attached," I shot back, my voice steady despite the storm brewing in my chest. "Real love celebrates and uplifts, not diminishes. We're here today because we're ready to confront this together, no longer as adversaries, but as a family who truly values one another." My commitment to healing resonated throughout the room, galvanizing my relatives into action. It was my sister who stepped forward first. "Francesca, we're not trying to attack you. We're acknowledging the hurt that's been buried for too long. We love you, but we can't allow toxic behavior to dictate our dynamics any longer." Her voice was soothing, a bittersweet balm for the growing discord. "I never realized how my words hurt you, Giulia," Francesca finally said, her voice quieter, cracking under the weight of her emotions. "What if I've been the villain all along?" The sheer vulnerability in her admission felt like an earthquake shifting the foundation of our family. No one had ever heard her speak so transparently before. "None of us are perfect," I reminded everyone, glancing around at my family, hoping to foster understanding. We've all been complicit in letting this cycle continue, but awareness is our first step toward healing. The nods of agreement from my relatives emboldened me, sparking a flicker of hope amidst the unfolding chaos. Francesca appeared more fragile now, her eyes misty as she faced the reality of the situation. I thought I was being funny. Just protecting you all from being too serious, she whispered, barely audible but heartbreakingly sincere. Maybe I was trying to hide my own insecurities. I had never seen Francesca show such candidness, and yet, here we were, peeling back layers of pretenses together. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, lost in the depths of vulnerability, yet desperately yearning for connection. We can't build any bridges if we don't first acknowledge the cracks, I replied, my heart racing from the emotional gravity. As the tension transformed from confrontation to collaboration, other family members began volunteering their own stories. My aunt spoke about how she had often turned a blind eye to the hurtful comments in hopes of preserving family harmony. It struck me how much laughter can mask pain, she admitted, her voice trembling but resolute. I want to change that. More relatives joined in, courageously sharing their experiences of feeling overshadowed or underappreciated, revealing just how deeply Francesca's words had affected them as well. The catharsis in the room burgeoned as the truth poured out, a collective release of pent-up frustrations that had long been stifled. At that moment, I realized we were not merely addressing Francesca's behavior. We were dismantling a system that had allowed misunderstanding and hurt to fester among us. Each voice that spoke up fortified the sense of unity. We were all complicit in sustaining this toxicity, but now we were set on a path toward healing together. Francesca took a deep breath, an audible sign of transformation. I'm sorry for everyone I've hurt. I don't want to be the source of pain in our family anymore, she declared, each syllable weighed down with regret and sincerity. I promise to listen. I don't want jokes to come at anyone's expense. Her admission marked a pivotal moment, an authentic commitment to change that resonated through the group. Words matter. One of my cousins reminded us softly, the weight of her truth sinking into our hearts. They can be both a weapon and a bomb. We need to remember that laughter can exist without malice. The thought lingered in the air, the echoes of her sentiment hanging like a thread binding us together. I could feel the atmosphere shift once more, blooming with possibility as we began to discuss how we could create a better familial bond renewed by respect and unconditional love. Going forward, let's check in with each other. If something doesn't feel right, let's talk about it instead of laughing it off, I proposed, imagining moments where transparency could prevail instead of superficial comfort. Francesca wiped away the tears that had pooled in her eyes. I want my words to build you up, not tear you down. I'm willing to learn and grow, even if it feels uncomfortable. I was taken aback by her vulnerability, the palpable sincerity that accompanied her words. And as the conversation flowed, other relatives began to contribute ideas for ensuring that our family gatherings could be a space where everyone felt valued. We discussed creating family meetings where feelings could be shared openly without fear of ridicule or judgment. Amidst thriving connections unfolding in that room, I felt a flood of warmth envelop me. This moment was not just a turning point for Francesca, or for me but for all of us. A realization that family dynamics are fluid and can be reshaped by courage and compassion. We were beginning the journey of reconciling our past with a renewed commitment to one another, paving the way for authentic relationships. As I glanced at Francesca, the spark of hope illuminated in her eyes reassured me that she was striving to embrace change. No longer the distant antagonist in my story, she was becoming a flawed but cherished family member ready to reclaim our connection. Together, we began to move away from the shadows of our past and step boldly into the light of healing and authenticity. It felt like a beautiful new chapter was unfolding before us, one defined by respect, understanding, and love. In the weeks following our heartfelt family meeting, I was amazed by how our interactions transformed. The atmosphere buzzed with a sense of renewed connection, and every gathering felt different, filled with a lightness that had long been missing. It was as if we had all been granted a second chance. A chance to rebuild our family fabric with honesty and respect. Francesca, in particular, began to surprise me. She engaged with my life in ways I had never experienced before. "How was your week? Did anything exciting happen?" she would ask, her genuine interest melting away the remnants of past sarcasm. Watching her shift from the playful jabs to sincere engagement was nothing short of surreal, but I felt grateful for every small step she took. One sunny weekend, our family gathered at the park, a sacred space for laughter and bonding that had been neglected for years. As the sun bathed us in warmth, I couldn't help but notice how Francesca interacted with my niece. She crouched down to guide her in flying a kite. "Let's get it high in the sky," she cheered, radiating an authenticity I had longed to see. In that moment, I felt a spark of hope. Laughter echoed as we reminisced about past family antics, but instead of painful memories, there was a sense of joy that stemmed from our shared experiences. "Remember the tent we tried to build in the living room?" I laughed, igniting a cascade of smiles around us. This was no ordinary day. It felt monumental as I sensed our collective healing process unfolding. As conversations flowed, my sister proposed we start a new family tradition: monthly game nights where everyone could contribute their favorite games. The excitement in the group was palpable as ideas bounced between us, shaping a future we could all look forward to. I felt warmth spreading in my chest, a sense of belonging that had previously been obscured by misunderstandings and hurt. However, not every moment was perfect. Francesca occasionally faltered, retreating into old habits. During a light-hearted conversation, she unintentionally made a sarcastic remark about the balance of work and family. I noticed the discomfort spread across my relatives' faces as they exchanged glances. "I didn't mean it like that," she quickly backtracked, her genuine concern evident. I took a deep breath, deciding to voice my thoughts. "Francesca, I know you didn't intend any harm, but let's remember how words impact us," I said, surprising myself with the compassion I felt. We were not just addressing Francesca's behavior. We were all learning to navigate a new reality through openness, understanding, and a willingness to grow. Later, Francesca approached me, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm sorry. I didn't recognize what I was slipping back into. Thank you for helping me see that." Her vulnerability touched me deeply, confirming the importance of our ongoing journey together. As time passed, we began to embrace new realities woven with compassion and accountability. Each family gathering became an opportunity to reinforce our connections, with laughter and shared experiences fostering a deeper bond. Our game nights flourished, turning into nights filled with joy and camaraderie. I marveled at the subtle yet undeniable changes in Francesca. Slowly, she was becoming an advocate for kindness. It reinforced my belief that with consistent effort, we could rewrite our family narrative rooted in love and support, healing the wounds inflicted by years of misunderstanding. Our journey had taught us invaluable lessons about the power of vulnerability, patience, and empathy. We were learning to celebrate each other, acknowledging that families are not perfect but can grow stronger through their imperfections. The path ahead was bright, filled with the promise of unity and joy, as we embraced our new reality, one where compassion reigned over cruelty.